Tomb Raider is one of them series that I almost have no experience with, and that's one of the best things about this retro channel, is that I get to go back to some of these amazing old series and some of these not so amazing old series. So with Tomb Raider 4 to 6 collection finally coming out this week, I decided I would get the 1 to 3 collection and go back and finally experience this series to see if it's really worth playing nowadays or if it holds up for a first time experience. And I'm going to be totally honest about this, I did not have high expectations for this game, and I'm not talking about the port that Aspyr did, I'm talking about the actual base game of what Tomb Raider is. I went into this with slightly negative mindset because I know it was a slower platformer with very methodical movement and slow animations and loads of backtracking and puzzles, which I usually don't like. But I was pleasantly surprised up until the game ran out of steam and overstayed its welcome completely. My only history with the series is playing the isometric Temple of Osiris or whatever it was called when it came to PS Plus years ago. I think I played it for an hour and I didn't get very far. I don't really remember much about it. And also I had memory of going to my cousin's house and playing one of the classic Tomb Raider games on PS1. And all I can remember is walking around like the streets of Venice, and I then later realized that was Tomb Raider 2. But apart from playing maybe an hour of Tomb Raider 2 in my cousin's house, I had zero experience with this game. And on this retro journey, there are just certain series that I've never really played, and this is the perfect time to finally play them. Tomb Raider was one of them. I think Metal Gear Solid is another. Mega Man is another one because I've only really played Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 and I never really beat them. Same with classic Castlevania games. I also did a video on Donkey Kong Country. That was another series. So if that sounds up your alley, then please subscribe. But now, let's talk about Tomb Raider 1, specifically the Tomb Raider 1 version from the 1 to 3 Remastered Collection. So going into these older games that do have remakes, I always ask myself the question, should I play the original or should I play the remake? And when it comes to games that have tank controls, it's very difficult for me to want to go back and play the original version because I just can't get behind tank controls anymore. In games like Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, I can tolerate them because them games are a bit slower, you have to take your time, and they do definitely work their best in that style of a game. But then when you get into these more platforming, slightly faster games like Tomb Raider or like Croc, which I will have a video on in the future, you're getting into the gameplay style where tank controls just, for me, never work and they slow everything down. And Tomb Raider 1 is already a really, really slow game, so I can only imagine what it was like if I played it with tank controls. So for this time, I did opt to play it in the 1 to 3 Remastered Collection. And before I talk about the actual game itself, this Remastered Collection that Aspyr did is nothing short of amazing. Now, I'm sure that there might be purists out there that love the original games and maybe they change this or they change that, but for someone who has almost zero experience with this series, jumping in now with this remake, it is absolutely amazing. You have an option between tank controls and normal controls. You can swap between the original graphics and the remastered graphics at any point. You can save at any point, which is a massive thing because I can only imagine how frustrating this game would be without that. And Aspyr have a bit of a rocky history with some of these remakes because some of them are disastrous, like the Battlefront Remastered Collection, which actually completely turned me off buying them games full stop. Some of them are in the middle, like the KOTOR 2 remake, which I did play. I almost beat the game, but then I ran into a game-breaking bug, which apparently was in the original game, but you should hope that they might be able to fix that in the remake, but they don't. And then you get into the likes of Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. And for me, as someone who hasn't played this, I don't see why this isn't the template on how to remaster these old style games. Because you can always get into the remake territory like the Insane Trilogy or like the Reignited Trilogy. And I absolutely adore both of those trilogies for what they did to bring them to modern platforms. Or if you wanted to be a bit more classic and preserve the original, you do exactly what Aspyr did. You give them the new style or the old style graphics, the new style controls or the old style controls. And in that way, I actually kind of feel that you keep both sides happy, because sometimes if you kind of go down the middle of something, you're kind of pandering to both audiences, but you don't make either of them happy. And I would like to know, for like hardcore Tomb Raider fans, what you feel about this, because for me as a new player, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I love that I can swap between the graphics on the fly just to see the little things that they did to make things look different. So if you are a hardcore Tomb Raider fan, let me know what you think about this collection in the comments down below. So the first couple of levels of Tomb Raider 1 are really solid, and it's because of one reason, is that they always keep you moving forward. You are always feel like you are progressing forward in the level, as in I'm going this room, next room, the room after that, and you're doing relatively fast platforming challenges, and then there's some slight puzzles, and the combat just isn't great. I mean, you literally walk around the circle and shoot things until they die. It's extremely basic, doesn't really change much with the gameplay. And the fact that the puzzles were really easy, and also finding the secrets was really satisfying because I could actually see where they were, and then I had to think, little platforming puzzle in my head of, okay, how do I get over there? And then as I started to get used to the controls and what Lara can do and all this sort of stuff, I started to learn how to find them secrets, and that little bling noise that comes out, and yes, that is a very accurate recreation of it, was very satisfying. And I had a great time finding all of these collectibles and finding the hidden secrets, and I just enjoyed the levels. I remember sending a message to my friend David just saying, I'm really surprised by this. There's a couple of times when I play these older games, and on my first playthrough, I'm excited to play them because I never have done, and I just enjoy playing new games and seeing what they're all about. And a couple of times on this channel, that excitement dissipated almost instantly. I would play 30 minutes of a game and I'd be like, oh my god, this is an absolute slog. How am I supposed to beat this game? And that's why sometimes I give up on certain games on this channel. And I was genuinely expecting that I would have that same reaction to this game. But I played it for like an hour and a half, and I had a great time on my first play session, and I actually woke up the next morning and I was excited to play more. And as the game goes on, things get slightly more challenging, the puzzles become a bit more in-depth, there's more enemies that you have to fight. And what I love about the platforming is that every single jump feels like it's life or death. They really push it to the absolute limit that you have to get every single jump perfect for Lara to be able to grab onto a ledge so that she can survive. And I love it because it does really give you that element of danger. And in this remake, it removes a lot of the frustration that I would imagine would have happened in this game, because if you die, you get sent all the way back to the start of the level. And I'm almost certain that in the originals you could only save at the start of the level, but correct me in the comments if you could actually save mid-level. But it meant that when I'm doing a platforming challenge, it still felt high stakes. Every jump felt like it mattered. But also, if I failed or I died, I didn't have to go back and spend another 30 minutes getting back to where I was, because I think that's where this game started to lose me. In the final third or the final quarter-ish of the game, it really started to ramp up the difficulty by making things just take longer. The platforming wasn't more challenging. The puzzles didn't really iterate on one another. They felt like I was doing the same thing. But how they changed it was that everything took so much longer. There are sections in the final couple of levels of this game where you are genuinely, and I'm not messing, genuinely pushing boxes around for 10 minutes. And if you don't know how slow the pushing box animation in this game, it's insane. You walk up to a box, the little hand comes up, which is a new feature that is well needed, because if that hand didn't come up, then I probably wouldn't realize that half of the stuff in this game was interactable. You press triangle, Lara sticks her hands out slightly, and then you either push forward or backwards depending on what way you want to push the thing, and then she does the little animation. And this game is all built on a grid system. Everything is a box, so you only move the box one grid or one unit, I guess, every single push, but you have to restart the animation. So there are sections where you are there for 5 or 10 minutes slowly pushing boxes around, and it happens quite a lot. And then there's sections where you are slowly clambering across a ledge that could take 2 or 3 minutes. Well, maybe not 2 or 3, maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes or whatever. But it's just all of these little things sort of get in the way of what the fun is of this game, like that sort of progression of moving forward. And I think all of these issues are highlighted by the mines level, which is one of the final levels of the game, because it's all about backtracking. And I don't mind a bit of backtracking. If the character moves fast, if the character moves fluidly, backtracking can be fine, because you can, chain together a couple of jumps and run around and all that. But this game doesn't really do that. Lara moves really slowly, and every single animation takes time. If you need to pick something up, she has to slowly move over to it and then pick it up. If you're at a ledge that you need to climb on, you have to walk up, press R2, and then she jumps up, slowly pulls herself up. So when you have to do this multiple times in the same section of the game, to go to area 1, to flick a switch, to go back to area 2, to then do something in that area, to go to area 3, to then loop back to area 2, everything just weighs down on you because of how slow and methodical everything is. And I can appreciate that this game was more than likely well ahead of its time back in the day. I wasn't even born when this game came out. It has amazing graphics, cutscenes, and all this sort of stuff going on. It has realistic animations of climbing things, and that's all cool. And you can see that Uncharted is very clearly inspired by this, but they obviously managed to rebalance things with more story, more combat, less climbing, and it's not as slow, and they made it just flow a bit better. And I think ultimately that's what this game is missing, is that flow state that I've never really got into. I got into it on the final level, because the final level is this constant, you're going higher and higher and higher. It feels like you are progressing, like you are in a flow state of moving through a level. Whereas a lot of the more slow and annoying levels are about backtracking through the same locations, and there's no real shortcuts or cool new ways to go. It's just backtracking. And if you understand 100% what you're supposed to do, this game is quite short. Like, some of the long plays of people who know what to do in this game are 3.5, 4 hours. I think it took me more like 6.5, 7 hours. So on a first playthrough, that final section just drags completely, and that excitement that I had near the start completely wore off, and I was more just like, I'll finish this game, I'll finish it for the channel. And I was hoping, when I started my first playthrough of this game, I really thought that I'd be like, oh, I really like this series, I love what it's doing, and I'll go and play 2 and 3 and do a video on it. But I just think the fact that I went through that, and that like 6.5, 7 hours really felt like 6.5, 7 hours, like it wasn't a short time. And then I started up 2, and I was like, I think I will actually just get really frustrated if I continue going. So for all the hardcore Tomb Raider fans out there, I would like to know, in the 4 to 6 collection, which ones are the ones that are worth playing? And out of 2 and 3, do I have to play all of them, or should I just play another 1 or 2 to see maybe where the series progresses? I would like to see some of the lineage of Tomb Raider from 1 to 6, so just let me know what the best ones are in the comments down below, and I might just dip in and play a couple of them just to experience it a bit more, because as I said, I do want to play more of these series just so I can sit here and say, okay, all of them seminal series that everyone goes on about throughout the history of gaming, I have at the very least dabbled in a couple of them. Now, apart from the game dragging, there are a couple of things specific to the remake that I think are just trade-offs when you upgrade certain things. So when you're playing in the old graphic style, which I do actually adore, and I love the water specifically in the old graphic style, I think it looks amazing. So when you're playing in that old style, all of the items are sprites on a 3D background, so they're really easy to see. If you see ammo on the ground or a key or whatever, they stick out, they really do, they stand out. But in the new graphic style, which I think does actually look really good, and they did a great job, the collectibles are now 3D assets on top of 3D assets, and because the lighting is slightly different, like when you switch between the old and the new style, sometimes one room is really bright in the old style and really dark in the new style, or vice versa. They sort of mix it around a bit. But now, a key on the ground is a 3D asset over more 3D assets, and with the new lighting, sometimes it's kind of difficult to see. And another thing is that while you're walking around the levels, my biggest frustration was that all of the doors and the levers that you have to pull, I walk past a lot of them. Now, that could just be me being bad. I would like to know if you ever experience that when you play these, because I'd be walking around the room and I'd be like, I don't know what to do now. And oftentimes I would just look up a long play and see what they did. And more often than not, I would literally walk past a switch that I just didn't see. And yes, some of it might be a skill issue, but also I just think it's kind of hard to see. And then one other gripe, and this is more with the game itself, is that sometimes when you pull a lever, the camera will pan and show you what it did. You know, it'll show you the door it opened, or show you whatever, a platform it lifted it up. But then other times you would pull a lever, the camera wouldn't pan, and then you just sort of have to figure out what it did. And it's just those little things. Like, I can appreciate what this series did. It obviously is a seminal series, and I'm glad that I did play it. It is very clearly a 3D take on the cinematic platformers of the 2D era, and I think they do a really good job of translating that very precise platforming and puzzles into a 3D environment, and I can appreciate that. But I'm just not sure if this series is for me. Now, as I said, let me know in the comments down below. Should I play 2? Should I play 3? Should I just move on to 4, 5, and 6? What game should I move around in and dabble with? Because I would like to see where this series goes, because maybe later on with a couple of refinements, like this game is from 1996, maybe more in-depth puzzles that are a bit more than what they were in Tomb Raider 1, or maybe they don't give you as many of these really long pushing boxes around or whatever. That sort of annoyed me in Tomb Raider 1. So maybe the series just improves dramatically in the next couple of games. So let me know in the comments down below. I will hopefully have a video for the 4 to 6 collection. in the future, so keep your eye out on that. I also have loads of videos here. This video, go click it because I asked you to, and I need you to click it, or something will happen, I don't know. Please subscribe, join the channel members if you really want to support this channel. All these games and retro games and CRTs are expensive, but whatever way you want to support the channel, that is okay with me. I just appreciate you watching. Goodbye.